What's up, Bengals Nation? Another tough one to swallow. The Bengals fall in a 39-38 heartbreaker to the New York Jets, and now the questions are flying. What's next for this team? Are we talking trades, roster moves, or something drastic to fix this defense before the deadline? We're breaking it all down tonight, plus a promising update on Joe Burrow that could change everything. Before we jump into the latest Bengals news, make sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and hit that bell icon so you never miss breaking Bengals updates. Now let's move on to the latest from the jungle. Alright, let's start with Joe Burrow. Reporter James Rapian dropped a video earlier showing Burrow walking around on the sideline. No walking boot, no limp. And that's a huge sign of progress for the Bengals franchise quarterback. Now let's be real, even if Burrow's recovery is ahead of schedule, the timetable still points toward mid-December. If that's the case, he'd only have a few games left this season. And the big question becomes, will the Bengals even be in playoff contention by then? Sunday's loss to the Jets was a golden chance to turn things around. Had Cincinnati won, and if Pittsburgh lost to the Packers, the Bengals would have been just half a game out of second place in the AFC North. Instead, they let it slip. Now with the NFL trade deadline approaching on November 4th, the pressure's on. Should the Bengals pull the trigger on a defensive trade to keep their season alive? Or is it too late? Drop your thoughts down in the comments. Why for yes and for no? Can this Bengals defense still be fixed before the trade deadline? You know what's crazy, Bengals fans? This team had finally built some momentum, 4 straight wins, and then they collapsed like that against the Ravens. It's the same painful pattern. You start believing, start thinking this team has turned the corner, and then boom, another loss that drags everything back down. And let's be honest, the Ravens aren't unbeatable. This was a game Cincinnati could have and should have won. That's what makes this loss sting even more. Now, here's where things get serious. If the Bengals fall again next week against the Bears, just 2 days before the trade deadline, things might have to change drastically. That might sound harsh, but at some point, you've got to face reality. If another loss happens, I wouldn't be shocked to see the front office start rebuilding from the ground up. That means tough decisions, maybe even trading key veterans like Logan Wilson, Trey Hendrickson, or T. Higgins to gather valuable draft capital. Between those names alone, the Bengals could pull 3 to 4 top 100 draft picks and reset for the future. Because let's be real, this defense right now, it's broken. The talent isn't clicking, the coaching looks lost, and no miracle coordinator could turn this unit around overnight. The only real path forward might be to tear it down and rebuild it through the draft, piece by piece. And speaking of trade talks, reports say the Dallas Cowboys actually called both the Raiders and the Bengals, trying to make a deal for Max Crosby and Trey Hendrickson. Both teams said no. We don't know what Dallas offered, but if it wasn't a first-rounder, Cincinnati probably made the right call. Hendrickson still has fire left in him, and giving him up for anything less than premium value would make 0 sense, unless this team fully commits to starting over. Up to this point I've stood firm. I didn't want the Bengals to trade Trey Hendrickson. He's been one of the emotional anchors of this defense, a leader who plays with grit every snap. But after this loss, and with the Bears game up next, I think we've officially reached the tipping point. If Cincinnati drops that game next week, the front office has no choice but to make some hard moves. And as much as fans love Hendrickson, the truth is, he's not changing games right now. Add in the injuries, the hip, the back, and you start to wonder how much longer he can stay effective at this pace. That hit he took before halftime looked rough. Some fans called it dirty, maybe even a block in the back, but either way, it's another setback. When Hendrickson's off the field, the Bengals' pass rush completely disappears, and that's the biggest problem. We've waited for Joseph Ossai to make his presence felt. Early in the season, fans said, "Just give him time." Well, time's up, and the impact still isn't there. Myles Murphy, same story. He was supposed to bring energy and explosiveness off the edge, but he's been quiet. And when you look back at last year's draft, taking DJ Turner and Myles Murphy while other prospects who could have made an instant impact were still on the board, it's fair to question the long-term vision. The defensive front hasn't delivered, plain and simple. If the Bengals lose to the Bears, it might finally be time to stop patching holes and start rebuilding the foundation. Trade the valuable pieces while they still hold weight, gather as many top 100 picks as possible, and start reshaping this defense for the future. Because right now, the same formula just isn't working, and everyone in Cincinnati knows it. So here's the question every Bengals fan is asking right now: what would Cincinnati even want in return for Trey Hendrickson? A lot of people are saying first-round pick or nothing. But let's be honest, that's a tough ask right now. Hendrickson's a warrior, no doubt, but between the injuries and the inconsistency this season, teams aren't going to pay top dollar. Realistically, the Bengals could probably get a second-round pick, maybe a mid-round selection, or a depth player thrown in. It wouldn't be a blockbuster deal, but it might be the kind of move that sets up Cincinnati to retool for the long term. Still, the Bengals have already turned down multiple offers, which shows how much they value Hendrickson's leadership and motor. But if the season slips any further, the front office might not have a choice. And honestly, I'm still stunned by what happened in that Jets game. The defense started on fire, flying around the field, playing fast, physical, and hungry. Guys like Demetrius Knight, Barrett Carter, DJ Turner, Josh Newton, and even Cam Taylor-Britt were making plays all over the place early on. The energy was electric, tackles for loss, quick stops, pressure everywhere. But then, it all faded. That spark we saw in the first quarter disappeared. The communication broke down, the tackling got sloppy, and suddenly the same defense that opened the game looking dominant just couldn't get off the field. It's the same story we've seen too many times this year: a great start, followed by total collapse. And unless something changes fast, this defense might drag down the entire season. After that electric first quarter, it all came crashing down. The Bengals forced a 3-and-out early, looked dominant, and then, it just unraveled. From that point on, the Jets scored on 7 of their last 8 drives. Field goals, touchdowns, didn't matter. The Bengals simply couldn't stop one of the weakest offenses in football. It was like they built an early lead and decided the game was already won. And that's what's maddening: the lack of urgency, the lack of fight when the momentum shifts. They coasted, and the Jets punished them for it. Now the big question: who's really to blame here? The personnel or the coaching? It's tough, because both deserve a share of it. Great coaches know how to maximize what they have, and right now, it doesn't feel like that's happening. Are we really saying guys like Trey Hendrickson and Logan Wilson suddenly forgot how to play football? Of course not. The scheme just isn't putting them in positions to succeed. And then there's the drafting, which has quietly been a major issue under this current regime. The Bengals have spent years of top 100 picks on players who haven't developed into difference makers. Look back: DJ Turner, Myles Murphy, Cam Taylor-Britt, McKinley Jackson, Jermaine Burton, plenty of names, but not enough production. Even the Demetrius Knight pick had fans scratching their heads from day one. The talent might be there, but the Bengals haven't done enough to turn potential into performance. And here's the honest truth: at this point, I don't care if Jermaine Burton shows up late to another meeting. He's flat out better than Andre Iosivas, and maybe even better than Charlie Jones right now. He could help this team immediately, both on offense and on special teams. When you're losing games like this, you need your most talented players on the field, not sitting on the sideline because of minor discipline issues. This team has enough talent to compete, but until the coaching and accountability catch up, it won't matter how good the roster looks on paper. At some point, you have to ask the hard question: are the Bengals still in the business of winning football games or not? Because if they are, then something has to change. The truth is, this front office and coaching staff have missed far too often when it comes to evaluating talent. Year after year, the Bengals spend top draft capital, yet the returns just aren't showing up on Sundays. We've said it for weeks now: too many wasted top 100 picks, too many players who never take that next step. And it's not just about who they draft, it's about how they're used. You can't keep throwing new talent into the same broken system and expect different results. Now, let's be fair, it's not all on the players. It's not all on the coaches either. It's both. Defensive coordinator Lou Anarumo is running a scheme that looks good on paper, but when guys are out of position, it collapses fast. Every time a running back bounces outside, there's nobody there to seal the edge. Every time the quarterback rolls out, there's no containment. That's not just bad execution, that's a structural failure. And what's worse? We've seen this movie before. After the first quarter, it's like the Bengals defense just disappears. They can't stop the run, they can't pressure the quarterback, and they can't adjust. At some point, you've got to stop saying, "It's bad luck," and admit the system just isn't working. So is it a personnel problem? Partly. Is it a coaching problem? Absolutely. But above all, it's a Bengals identity problem. Until this team figures out who it wants to be, physical, disciplined, and ruthless, these same mistakes will keep repeating week after week.